Hello everyone, Dark Geyser here, welcoming you back to the next episode of my Space Engineers Survival series. As you can see, I've done quite a bit of work on my cliffside base, including building myself a very serviceable rover, which I actually managed to also build a connector that I could get to hook up the first time. Those of you that have actually tried to do this will understand just how difficult that can be sometimes. I've also managed to build myself a fairly interesting wind turbine arrangement. I had decided to put the entire thing mounted on one turret or one column, and then I built the turrets onto the column itself because the turrets cannot shoot themselves. This is primarily because I have the wolves turned on for the planet, and I have a mod which turns the wolves into T-800 Terminators. This is primarily because I don't like the idea of shooting wolves, but I sure don't have a problem shooting T-800 Terminators. And they came at me so fast and so furiously last time that I felt that I had to have some defense guns. One of the advantages to the Terminators coming at me early on is the fact that if you defeat them, then they tend to drop a backpack similar to what an astronaut or an engineer will drop when he gets killed, and they will often have some useful materials or tools in them. As it turns out, the second or third Terminator that I managed to bring down had some magnesium, which I was able to use to actually make more ammunition for myself, since my rifle was almost out of ammo and I wound up trying to take out the Terminator with a grinding tool. I have managed to build one battery, and I have my survival kit for respawning purposes, and I built myself a small ladder to come up here so that I can service the guns. Both of the wind turbines are working at an optimum pace, and they're generating a little over 300 kilowatts, which is more than enough to drive the equipment that I currently have operating. I have my basic refinery and my basic assembler working, as well as an O2 generator. The basic assembler is doubling as a cargo container at the moment, since I don't happen to have a cargo container. My connector is also picking up a tremendous amount of material, and I'm not sure if it's being pushed from the assembler or not. As you can see, I've managed to accumulate quite an eclectic collection of material. A lot of this has actually come from the Terminators, including at least two that dropped over 300 or 400 steel plates apiece. So I'm actually not disappointed that I've had them turned on, because if nothing else, they're a good supply of resources. I've done a little bit of driving around, and I've found some mining signals. I have a cobalt mine, which I have already tapped, and a nickel deposit, an iron and a nickel deposit there. And then I have my GPS marker for Cliffside itself. So now my plan is, now that I have my refinery and my basic assembler up and running, and most of this is from digging out this cave, unlike many underground bases that are built with right-hand mining just to get the material out of the way. All of this is from left-hand mining, and then all of it went into the refinery. Oops, I have a military cardigan bay. Cargo is magnesium and cobalt. I happen to know from past experience that those things tend to be fairly heavily armed, and I don't have anything except an assault rifle, so I'm not going to go out and try to bring those things down. Interesting fact about the rover, I managed to build this out of parts that were largely left over from the drop pod, including the battery. Since grinding the power cells gives you scrap metal and not material that you can use to make more power cells, and since you lose whatever charge you happen to have on the battery, which greatly offends me, I had decided that I wanted to try to use the battery in some fashion so that I wouldn't be wasting the resources and I wouldn't be wasting the charge that was on it. So I built a platform. I ground away the drop pod from around the battery, except for the landing gear that it was resting on. And then I went ahead and built a square platform around it, attached pistons to it, went ahead and lifted it off the ground, and then I started building the rover around it. And it worked out very well, and I'm very happy. I'm also going to be making a couple of minor alterations. I forgot that I have my control panel there. I had to put that there to operate the pistons when I was working with things, and I have not changed that. I'm going to have to get that back off of there. And now I'm looking for, what did I do with my sensor? And the sensor is an interior plate item. And I have no interior plates. So let's run off 10 of those. And now we're going to put that down. Five construction components, 3 computers. Just so I don't have to remember. There we go. Now what I am going to do is I am going to extend out all of the directions except for the back and the front, and that's primarily because they're already set at 5 meters, and that's looking straight up into the air and down into the ground underneath the rover, since the sensor is facing forward. And I actually don't want it to detect anything except me. And what I'm going to do is I am going to set up the actions. Now, I don't think that I do not have a... When I leave the area of the sensor, I'm going to make sure that my antenna is on. When I am in range of the sensor, I'm actually going to have it turned off. And this is primarily a power saving issue. Now, as long as I am within 50 meters of the rover, the antenna will not be on, and that's primarily because I already have a hand drill that has the same range on it as the ore detector that I have built onto the rover. So having an antenna that connects me to the rover doesn't do me any good. When I travel 50 meters or more away, the antenna should come on, and unfortunately it does not for some reason. Interesting. This is what happens when you do things backwards. Now, as I said, when I'm close by, the antenna is turned off because I can find the rover when I'm close by. However, once I leave the area, then the antenna comes on, which enables me to find the rover. And I do that mainly as a power saving measure, because that way I'm not spending any power on the antenna to help me find a rover that I'm standing right next to. If it should turn out that I build a beacon on the rover, then I will probably install a small timing block, and I'll hook that into the sensor as well, and then I'll wind up doing the same thing. And now we're here in our rover. Unlock that thing. Going to go ahead and turn my lights on, even though It's not actually very dark out. It's going to be. I have not yet driven this direction, and I also have not seen what's up at the top of the hill that I have the base dug into the side of. So I'm going to take a little bit of a trip. I'm going to see what we can't find. Finding cobalt and nickel and iron were all very useful, particularly the cobalt, because I can't get that just from refining stone. However, I am going to be needing a lot of other material, and a lot of driving is going to be in my future so that I can find out what's going on. Let's see where we're at. Okay. Ooh, I got some rough terrain coming up. This knobby terrain can really tear up your rover. You have to be careful going over this. And I have my speed settings turned down fairly low. I don't plan on this thing being a race car. I need for it to get from point A to point B and look for stuff. Now I'm above the base. Oh, that's just more ice. I find it ironic that I didn't have enough ice at my other location, and here, literally everywhere I go, I find it. Now, there is a... that's the Cardigan Bay. It's 11 kilometers away, so hopefully I won't have to deal with that. I am not yet over the emotional trauma of having my base shot out from under me, especially considering how well it was doing and how far along I had come. So yeah, starting over is going to be a little bit of a trial, and I thought I had seen something as I drove over it, but apparently not. So today's plan is I drive around and scout for material. And then, as you may have just seen the title card come up for the autosave, I'm going to start improving my defenses. Now that I have a source of cobalt, I'm going to start building heavy armor block so that I can better survive enemy attack. And between that and the added firepower, I still have a very small amount of magnesium. Unknown signal. All of the magnesium that I've gotten so far has come from intercepting terminators, and obviously that's not a reliable supply, so I need to try to find a better supply of magnesium so that I can build better guns, so that I can better defend my base. My next idea, or my next plan, is to build a small flying mining vessel. Right now I'm mining with my bare hands, or with my drill rather, and mining with my bare hands. That's depressing. I'm mining with my hand drill, which is very, very tedious and is virtually useless for expanding the base. I spent several hours after my last episode just hollowing out the area that you saw at the back of my headquarters. So I obviously need something that can clear things out a little bit faster, and I have to be careful with all this rough terrain. I don't think I'm going to go for the unknown signal. I think it's too... At 2 minutes, it's a little bit hazardous for what I'm likely to get out of it. I'm going to take a spin around this valley down here to see if I can find any anything other than ice. As I had said, finding materials is going to be a bit of a challenge. Uh-oh. Okay, that doesn't seem to have been too terrible. Also does not seem to have been terribly productive. Another reason why I have my speed turned down is that at a high enough rate of speed, you can't, your ore detector will not spot mineral deposits. You're simply driving over them at such a high rate of speed. I believe that the ore detector only activates every second or two, and so you can literally, if you're driving fast enough, you could possibly drive over an ore deposit, particularly if you're way on the end of a tendril or a branch of an ore deposit, or it's very deep. You might actually drive over the thing and just not see it if you're traveling at too high a rate of speed. Nope, lots of ice. I have a feeling I'm going to be building myself a hydrogen engine relatively soon, simply to keep my batteries topped up. I did not use one in the other base location, primarily because ice was somewhat hard to come by. But since I'm right next door to an entire field of it, there's no reason not to utilize it. I thought I had put a camera on the back of the rover, but I guess not. Which is fine. I am fairly experienced at backing and docking, particularly in Space Engineers. Oop. Of course, if I hit the right button, that would be nice. And there we are. Let me turn the lights off so those aren't drawing power. So as I said, I'm going to begin making heavy armor block, and I'm going to begin filling this in. I'm also going to have to build a mining vessel, since digging this out by hand is beyond tedious. That will probably be my next port of call, particularly because the Terminators keep dropping power cells, so I have not had to make that many, except for my own large grid battery back here, and they even donated quite a few to that cause. I may go ahead and expand out my... You know, why don't I go ahead and do that? Do I have any... No, I have everything except steel plate. Let me see here. Girders is the one that I always forget about, because until this update, you only used girders for Windows. Okay. And I clicked on the wrong thing. Well, fortunately, iron is not something that I'm in short supply of right now. Alrighty. Now, I don't believe that this one will be as good as that one because the rock face is so close. So... but that one seems to be optimum, so we'll... Did I not grab the interior plates? Apparently I did not. Really? Well, there's a problem. I don't have that many interior plates. There we go. Let's try this again. Construction components. It's not 24 girders total, it's 24 girders per. My mistake. Well, that appears to be running. Got plenty of armor block left. It's gonna look funky, but again, no interior plates. Anyone watching this would not know that I have been playing this game for over 3,000 hours. There are days when you just can't hit the ground with your hat. Oop. Now, I know I shouldn't do this. Okay. Well, I've still got 6 steel plates in there, so that'll do. 337, 337, 337, and 337 all optimal. Okay, now I have more than enough power. And batteries will be recharged accordingly. So I'm going to leave it here today. Thank you for coming on the drive with me. It was very scenic, if not terribly productive. Is that the same guy? Cargo missiles? No thanks. As I said, during the off-camera time, I'm going to start expanding the base. I'm probably going to build myself some sort of a flying drill type of machine so that I can come in here and clean this out. Anything near the equipment, of course, I'll do by hand just to make sure that I don't crush anything. But I'm going to start cutting my way back into this hill, and I have a lot of room, so I get that built up, and then I'm going to install the good stuff like the full-size refinery, full-size assemblers, and then start building up from there. I look forward to your comments and appreciate all of the constructive criticism and advice that I've been getting. As always, likes are appreciated and subscriptions doubly so. Don't forget to hit that little reminder bell so that you can get updates whenever I post them. This is Darkizer signing off. Have a good evening.